Swear on air. Don't be swearing, Evan Turner. All right. All right, let's go. 1, 2, 3. Welcome, NBA fans, to another episode of King's Court, brought to you by www.sports-kings.com. Let's see if I can find the logo. Oh, I'm good at this now. I'm Andy Flynn. I'm your host. Along with me tonight, I have Frank Santos. Give Frank a round of applause, everybody. This is his first time joining this particular episode. Frank, what's up, man?
Nothing. I heard that everybody agrees on this show and y'all sing Kumbaya, so I came to see if I can rock the boat a little bit.
Don't rock the boat, baby.
Rock the boat, Aaliyah style. So next we have Brandon. Brandon, how's it going, man?
It's going fabulous. I'm going to try not to talk about my Phoenix Suns too much in this episode. Phenomenal year for the Suns, and things are going great.
Show them the jersey, Brandon. Show them the jersey.
Rocking my Tracy McGrady Houston Rockets jersey from 1971-72 season, to be exact.
And please note that I know people who have tuned into the show before have usually Brandon sitting in some kind of a shrine of the Phoenix Suns behind him, and now he's wearing a Rockets jersey. And last but not least, because he'll probably be doing the most talking tonight, we have Michael Prosser. What's up, Michael?
You know how it is. A quick shout-out right now to Arizona Iced Tea's Arnold Palmer, my lifeblood. I live off this thing. The greatest drink known to man. If you can find it at a Walmart, at a local gas station, do it. It's incredible.
Yeah, that stuff is like crack. It's like Lamar Odom likes crack. I like Arnold Palmer.
Yeah.
Too soon, man.
Since we're shouting out drinks,
my Lamar Odom.
I prefer stuff that men drink. Samuel Adams, and this is the summer ale.
Very nice.
It's all right. So anyways, we got a pretty good show for you guys tonight. We're going to be talking NBA playoffs. I mean, what else at this point? We're going to kick off here with a little discussion that we've kind of been having over the days. Frank and I have talked a little bit about this. If you go to let's try that again. If you go to www.sports-kings.com/pass-the-pill, that's a mouthful. You can find we've done our Eastern and Western rankings for the playoffs, the power rankings, and we've kind of talked a little bit about a possible change in the format of the NBA playoffs. I know everybody's been chatting about this the past few years. Actually, we saw the Phoenix Suns not make the playoffs this year when they have a better record than like half of the teams in the playoffs out east. And Brandon's fired up, so fired up that he wore the jersey of a rival Western Conference team that was kind of part of the pushing Phoenix out over there. So let's go. We'll go with you first, Brandon. Not just for the Phoenix Suns in general, but for all teams. Like, do you think there's a way to fix this? A different way to do the playoffs? What would work for you?
First off, this is a really good question because really this question relates to any Phoenix Suns fan or any team in the past that's had a winning record and didn't get into the playoffs. I remember a few years back, Utah Jazz, they had like 45, 46 wins, and they didn't get in. So I don't really like this, even though I've kind of been flip-floppy and hypocritical with my answer, because this would really affect NBA history. That's really all it would come down to, is are they willing to take that risk? Like I've said that before, and I don't know how to say it. Like, I guess that's really, I don't know if they're willing to take that risk. Maybe in 5 to 10 years, Adam Silver can kind of warm up to being an NBA commissioner, and I guess we'll just see where it goes.
So same question to you, Michael. How do you feel about the format? Should we keep it the same? Should we change it? I mean, not that our opinion really matters, but.
Well, who are we? We're just four guys on the internet, I mean. But, personally, and I've thought about this a lot today. I see why people want to change it, and I get it. But at the same time, the Suns can't help the fact that they're in a very tough conference, and everybody else in the Eastern Conference can help the fact that they suck this year. It's just, a foregone conclusion. But if you look at recent leagues that have changed their playoff format, being a hockey guy originally, look at what the NHL did when they had to realign. They had to change their playoff format with three, teams in like a massive, 6 or 7 team division. I don't think that the NBA really wants to do anything like that. Even going so far as minor league hockey, where the American Hockey League had a format at one point before a couple years ago, due to realignment, where a team in, I think it was in the Atlantic Division of the Eastern Conference, had a better record than like the third place team in the Eastern Division of the Eastern Conference. The Atlantic Division team got in. The NBA doesn't want to get too complicated like that. Keep it simple. The 1-8 format is fine right now. The Suns got screwed. I get it. The Jazz got screwed in the past. But again, you can't find until you find a formidable way to get around it where everything works. Why change it? There's no point.
Well, I think I saw that 4 times the team has won 48 games or more or whatever and didn't get in the playoffs, and I think 3 times it had been the Suns. Frank,
The league is out.
I know you got something to say here, Frank.
I got a lot to say. First of all, we all know that Adam Silver watches the show. Adam Silver, cut the check. We'll sponsor you. We'll put the logo right up there. Anyways, I absolutely think it's time to change the format. It's really simple. You just make it 1 through 16. It's not like this crazy change. You're really only going to – this year, you'd only change, what, 1 playoff team? It would be the Phoenix Suns instead of the Atlanta Hawks. That would be the only change in this year's playoffs. And so you just – it's not 1987 anymore. Like, you have red eyes that can get you from Phoenix to Cleveland in like 6 hours, whatever it is. Yeah. It's not like you have off days in between. It's not a huge deal. And in my wrinkle, I know Andy's going to hate me for this, but I think the number 1 team, the number 1 seed should get to choose who they face in the first round. That should be the reward. That's how we reward regular season winners. So like the San Antonio Spurs, if they're going to match up with the Bobcats, like this year they would match up with the Bobcats if it was 1 through 16. So they're like, screw that. I don't want to go against Al Jefferson for 7 games. He's going to abuse us inside. I'd rather go against the Wizards. We're a better matchup against the Wizards. I think they should have the right to flip-flop and say we want to face the Wizards instead of the Bobcats.
And, I thought about this. I'll let the record show that I called this idea dumb yesterday.
That was the exact terminology he used. That's dumb. I said, why don't you like it? He said, I don't know, it's dumb.
I had no reason. Well, I do have a reason. I mean, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday. I felt like, if the Spurs got to say, hey, we want to play so-and-so, then that kind of makes everything. And I understand they would just slide around the matchups. You would just go with the next lowest with the next highest. But still, to me, it kind of changes everything. I do, however, agree with Frank quite a bit of the way. I mean, saying dumb was a little dramatic. Actually, I was kind of just being a prick, which is okay because sometimes I do that. But I like the 1 through 16, and I just like 1 plays 16, 2 plays 15, and so on. But I almost feel like it's time to go more dramatic and maybe change the amount of games played. I think I settled in my mind, and this wasn't all of my design. I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday, in fact, and what about 58 games, and then each team plays each team 2 times. But then there's no use for divisions or conferences, which was another thing I was arguing for, was to keep the 2. But I don't know. I guess I'm blowing the whole thing up. Like I'm almost to the point where I've come full circle, and I want to just say no, just keep it 1 through 8 because now I've made this mess.
The thing is,
and I don't know what to do.
Let me tell you guys something too. Andy was so frustrated with the playoff situation that he decided yesterday he wanted to contract 6 teams from the league. He was like, screw this. Just get 6 of the teams out of here. It'll be so much simpler if we just get Boogie and his Kings out of here. He didn't say Boogie, and he said the Kings. I said Boogie and the Kings because that's his boy, and he would never say anything bad about it.
Yeah, I didn't disrespect the best center in the NBA. I still kind of agree with the.
That was nice of you not to insult Joakim Noah.
I mean, I can insult Joakim Noah's hair all day, but I feel like it was. I still think they should contract some teams possibly. The only problem is I wonder how far you have to get in the contraction before my Magic are gone, and I obviously don't want that to happen. But let's go back now that we've kind of talked about blowing this thing up. Brandon, I want to go back to you because you said no, keep it the same. What would your thoughts be on either what I or Frank had proposed there?
Both of you put up solid debates, and I just
quit being nice.
Well, first off, Frank, you sort of rattled our cage here, but I just feel like it would be too much of a mess, and I think it's going to take a long time for them to figure this out. And are they even considering this? Do we have any confirmation on that?
Probably not. I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I think it's sorry to interrupt, Frank.
They probably have thought about it. I mean, we're not just making this up.
But again, I feel like it would just really cut into the ties of NBA history. I don't know if this was insult some people. They're like, oh, they're changing the playoffs. I don't know. That's just my little.
You know what you tell them, Brandon? Say it's 2014. Life changes. Get over it.
I know, right?
Get out of here, you traditionalist.
And
Tell them to throw their
who-
iPhones away too if they don't like it, and go back to playing Atari or something like that if they don't like the way it is.
I don't know if I
ColecoVision kicked
read it.
ass, man.
I don't know if I read it somewhere in Sports Kings or if I maybe read it somewhere else, but I think someone was saying like, what were they saying? Oh, I totally just forgot what I was gonna say. But again, NBA history, I just think it would affect it. That's really my argument. Does that even
No,
raise
it's
an
a
argument?
valid point, though. I understand what Brandon's saying. Like, you have so much history of Eastern Conference rivals and Western Conference rivals, and if you kind of mix that up and all of a sudden, like, San Antonio's playing Charlotte in the playoffs, it's kind of like the two teams don't know each other. And
That reminds me, though.
I definitely get that point.
That would actually be really fun to see. That's something I could probably see them going for. Like, they should be able to pick that. I like what you guys said about that.
Yeah, see? Brandon's
I
on
think
board.
for me, it's tough because I got to the point where yesterday I was explaining this to somebody and I was like wide-eyed and very childish and I was like, hey, let's 1 through 16 it. We'll keep the conferences, we'll keep the divisions because we want to keep that stuff. The teams who win each division get in no matter what. That was my idea. They wouldn't necessarily be the 1 through 6 seed. Obviously, it would kind of go by record. But then the dude looked at me like I was real stupid and he goes, that doesn't make any sense. He's like, because the 6 division winners are going to be in the top 16 anyways. And I was like, I looked at him real dumbfounded. I was like, God damn it, my argument's terrible now. And so then I
looked
found
at you and
myself.
said, that's dumb. This is
He
dumb.
should have too. He didn't know that I was picking on your stuff, so he had no reason to say it to me. But then I got to the point where I was like, man, now my conferences and divisions don't even matter. Let's cut 14 games or 24 games off of the schedule, and then I'm like, dude, I've just butchered the NBA, and now I want to keep it. Michael, you have any closing thoughts?
Well, one quick question. Does that mean Mo Cheeks would still be coach of the Detroit Pistons then if we would have done that this year?
No, he'd still be fired.
He would have had 8 games. No, he would have had 8 games with the other guy. Anyway, but I don't care, Santos. I guess I'm a sports purist. It's been
Go
that
play
way
your
for-
Atari, Michael. Go play your Atari. Get out of here.
Hey, I'm in the Stone
Go play
Age,
your
man. I
Game
got a
Boy.
360. Anyway,
That's even old now.
It's like that it's not like that with just basketball. I mean, look at baseball. That game has hardly changed in what, almost 120 years?
Yeah,
maybe-
it's slowly.
But even they changed their playoff format.
It's surged.
Yeah, I
slowly
understand
too.
that, and it's kind of, with
Granted, that
baseball,
one game
it's a little
playing
bit-
is completely stupid. It's just
Yeah,
trash.
it's a little bit easier. I mean,
But
maybe
anyway.
eventually you start seeing a wild card team in the NBA or something. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to make sense. If it's been, and maybe it's just a traditionalist in me talking. If it's been one way, how long would it take for people to make sense? And what happens if people start hating it? Like, what
It's
happens
funny
if
you
you're
say
like,
that, Michael,
okay,
because that
this
was
is
another potential idea I came up with. Like, could you have a scenario where you have 2 last wild card teams and they play a 3-game series to see who gets the final spot? Like, say the Hawks play the Suns in a 3-game series. Obviously, the Suns are going to kill them. So
I just have something
they
to say.
get the spot.
I just have something to say. Sorry to cut you guys off. I remember what I was going to say, and I think I even wrote it on Sports Kings was, what if they just try it out for a year, kind of like they did with the All-Star events? Hopefully they're not going to keep it that way, and maybe they can just do it for 1 year.
I like it. I like the idea of a trial period. Then they can collectively bargain it and have a lockout because of it. It'd be great.
Okay, but if they do have that 1-year trial period, I propose a fantasy draft.
Oh,
Yeah. Ooh.
All right.
We're going.
Let's move
no,
on. Let's move on.
Stop. We're going to the next question. This is out of control. I'm going to end this thing. Okay, so the next thing is this is going to talk about the first round, the actual first round, because we are no longer in fantasy land. Like, we're gone. It's done. We're not contracting teams. We're not opening things up. This is not the NCAA March Madness tournament. This is the NBA playoffs, 1 through 8, each conference. We know what we're getting here. We know the East is going to suck, guys. I mean, we got to deal with this because there still almost was some really good matchups. But let's talk about players, players that are new to the playoffs this year, because we have a few of them. And maybe it's not their first year. That was kind of the original thought. But maybe some guys that have been there but haven't really had a chance to really do anything in the playoffs. Maybe they were on a bad 8 seed or something like that. I mean, if you're the 8 seed in the East, you're not very good. But let's talk about some of these guys that we're excited. We'll each pick one. I'm going to go to you first, Frank. Who do you want to see more than anybody in this first round of the playoffs?
I had two guys that I went back and forth with. I won't say my other guy because I have a feeling somebody's going to pick him. But the guy I ended up going with was John Wall. I really want to see John Wall in a playoff series because despite what Jason Whitney, founder of Sports Kings, thinks, he needs to up his dosage on his crazy pills. Bradley Beal is not the best player on the Wizards. It is John Wall. It always will be John Wall. But I mean, I'm just excited to see him in a playoff series. I think it's a great test for him against a tough defense in the Bulls. I really would have liked to see the Wizards and the Raptors have that Kyle Lowry, John Wall matchup because I think it would have been a great point guard matchup. But I'm very excited to see him. I think he's going to put up incredible numbers. I think the Wizards are going to give the Chicago Bulls a very, very tough series, a lot tougher than a lot of people think.
Michael, we'll go to you. Who are you most excited to see, young guy-wise?
Well, despite the fact that I agree with everything that Frank Santos just said, I'm wondering if his second player had.
We're getting a rivalry right here, you two.
I'm wondering if Frank's second player happened to have three D's in his name, and that's DeMar Darnell DeRozan. Yes,
it did
DeMar
not.
DeRozan. I'm excited to see DeMar DeRozan.
I like the middle name drop.
This guy, he put up amazing numbers this year, career highs in everything but games played, games started, and field goal percentage. 22.7 points per game. He was an all-star this year. And he's really kind of put this. I don't know where the hell this Raptors team has come from, but he's kind of led them
Rudy
in the right
Gay purgatory.
Exactly. I mean, this is aside from nothing else. This is the one thing that Toronto fans, that the city of Toronto has had something to look forward to, was the frickin' Raptors. I mean, the Blue Jays are never going to be healthy. I mean, they just lost 7-0 to the Twins today. The Maple Leafs lost they blew a 9-game lead in the wild card and fell out of the playoffs. Nobody cares about the Toronto Rock, unless you're a Canadian, you don't really care about the Toronto Argonauts. So
Rock.
I don't even know half those teams you just talked about.
Yeah,
the Toronto Rock is Major League Lacrosse, man. You guys got to get into that. Come on.
They have that.
Yeah, dude, the Philadelphia Wings. I mean, you guys are sleeping on that.
I thought that was just a high school sport that people stopped playing in high school.
I mean, come on, man. You guys are seriously sleeping on it. But seriously, do not sleep on DeMar DeRozan. I would have actually really been excited to see DeRozan versus Wall had the 3-6 matchup in Toronto and DC, which actually I predicted in the last episode of King's Court. If you guys want to go back and watch that, it's a great watch. But yeah, DeMar DeRozan, I'm anxious to see what he's going to do, how he's going to mature, and to see if he's going to be able to take that next step and try to get into that second tier of the upper echelon of the NBA.
To bounce off of Michael's point a little bit, they were talking about DeMar DeRozan used to have three D's in his name as well. He was DeMar No Defense DeRozan. That's how people knew.
Tell him.
So he's kind of he's transformed his game. So now he plays a little bit of D. But to put in perspective Toronto sports, I was watching Grantland with Bill Simmons and Jalen Rose. They had Drake on talking about the Raptors, and Drake said that the highlight for Toronto Raptors fans was watching Vince Carter win the dunk contest. That's their mecca of sports moments.
2002?
It makes sense though. It was 2000.
And just think about that in perspective. What is the greatest thing you've ever seen your sports team do? Probably win a great playoff game, win a championship. They're like, dude, we got the dunk contest. Vince won the dunk contest.
That's true. And they had McGrady was in that same one, and he did well too.
So that just puts in perspective how excited they got to be about having a legitimate team.
And if you look at it, they draped themselves out of the NBA. They started from the very bottom, and now they're first.
Oh man!
Oh, here we go. So before we go to Brandon,
stay in the wheelchair, Jimmy.
Let me say two things before we go to Brandon. Oh my!
We got a Degrassi reference.
Michael. Before we take this to Brandon, so I can get his 2 cents. The only thing Toronto needs to do is when they get that game at home, that first game at home, they need to have Rob Ford come out and he needs to bring Lamar Odom with him.
Jonas Vasilevs was the Lithuanian drunk guy that's on the team. They need to
I had to get that before I forgot. So let's go to Brandon. Brandon, what young player are you looking forward to most?
Well, first off, going off record, I think the Raptors last made the playoffs in 06-07 when they still had Bosh.
2007, yeah, it was 2007.
Yeah.
And they only made the Nets.
Yeah, and they only won one game, but anyways, going back on the record. Now, Frank, I think your guy, I have a hunch here. Was it Damian Lillard who you're excited
about? It was Damian Lillard.
Because
that was the other guy.
this kid is insane. And I guess you could throw LaMarcus Aldridge in there because I don't think he's been to the playoffs yet. I'm excited to see those two, Damian Lillard and LaMarcus Aldridge.
LaMarcus has been to the playoffs. He was a member of the Brandon Roy team that
plays though, because I would count him because he's he's not somebody who got to really do something. Actually, I said that kind of thinking of DeMar DeRozan Aldridge at the beginning. He's on my brain. Finish up, Brandon. Go ahead.
And first off, I said Brandon Roy. That brings back so many flashbacks. That guy could have been an amazing all-star. But really, that's really it. I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge, I remember at the start of the year, and I think I talked about this on a previous episode of King's Court, was this guy almost could have won MVP if it weren't for LeBron and Durant. This guy was like in third place for like most of the year for MVP. Damian Lillard will eventually be an MVP candidate. This guy's a stud. I hope that they can do some damage, and I think they're versing the Rockets in the first round, right?
Yeah, you're going to have to change that jersey. You're going to have to
man. I got to change it to Lillard and Aldridge.
You can still wear the jersey, but just you could get a Brandon Roy knee brace.
And guys, I just have to say this because I live in Phoenix. I'm just saying, guys, you guys would have been so impressed with my Suns if they would have made the playoffs. I'm not saying we would have won. I'm just saying.
I was completely on board. Like, I had my mind wrapped around a Phoenix Suns San Antonio Spurs series. Like, I was all pumped for it. I was getting like the matchups ready, and then they just flamed out. It happened. Flamed out. They won 50 games, but
I was getting fishing poles ready either way. Michael, you had something to say.
Ouch.
Yeah, quick to bounce off of my bounce off of Brandon's bounce off of Frank. However, if you want to trace that Matt bounce off back,
you just said bounce off.
This is another guy. Exactly. This is another guy I'm kind of intrigued by because I got to see him play a little bit when he was at the University of Maryland. They'd come down to Little John Coliseum and play Clemson every once in every game or two or whatever it was. But I mean, the shoot when he was at Maryland, he had the ability to score in New Orleans. Then he gets up to Toronto and he's taking off there. I don't know why I'm so enamored by the fact that Toronto is in the playoffs. Maybe because, just as a kid, X amount of years ago, I don't want to show anybody's age here, Andy, but, this Toronto Raptors team has always been horrible. I mean, we used to always, watch the NBA and be like, oh, the Raptors are on the schedule. Check that one off on the list as a win.
Yeah.
No, not so much. I mean, this is baffling to me.
I'm probably the only one in here who had like a steady girlfriend when Vince Carter won that dunk contest.
I was in the 6th grade, so yeah,
I was too young.
But anyway, so my
11 or 12.
My picks have obviously been taken since I went last. I did, however, I had John Wall, and then my backup was Damian Lillard, and then my backup to that was DeMar DeRozan, and then I even had a fourth in mind, thinking you three might take those, but Brandon mentioned LaMarcus Aldridge too, so. John Wall's my first choice, obviously. He's dynamic. I know a guy out there, Carlos Edwards, shout out to him. He thinks that John Wall's going to be the best point guard in the NBA in 2 years.
He's no Bradley Beal, though, right? I mean,
hey, you guys got to watch out.
But I like my guy, though. My guy that I'm going to talk about, since you guys talked about everybody else, is Kyle Lowry, because he hasn't really gotten a chance. Not the Kyle Lowry he is now to play in the league.
Should have been an all-star.
He should have been. And the thing with Kyle Lowry that most impresses me, besides the fact that he played at the best college there is, Villanova, baby. I feel like once Rudy Gay was no longer in Toronto, that team turned around, and a big part of it was because Kyle Lowry got to do Kyle Lowry things, as where it was kind of just DeMar and Rudy Gay before that. And actually, I think DeMar DeRozan played better basketball with Rudy Gay gone too. Rudy Gay's a bad influence. Like I don't know what that guy's doing besides collecting money he doesn't deserve. But Kyle Lowry, I'm happy to see. I'm happy to see what he does. Even though I don't think that he's anything like Marcus Smart or vice versa. Although I was told that today.
Does he flop like Marcus Smart?
Oh man, I have a very, very deep sleeper for a player to watch. Kemba Walker. I'm looking forward to. If he wasn't facing the Heat, I'd be looking forward to it a lot more. But I feel like Kemba might have one UConn step back game winner in this series. They might win it.
Santos with the curveball.
Nobody mentioned that because of who he's playing.
They're definitely losing in no less than 5. I mean, they're probably going to get swept. But if they do, I'm looking forward to a potential Al Jefferson 38-22 game with a nice Kemba step-back winner, and that'll be enough for me as a Charlotte Bobcat fan. Like, I'm going home happy for the next 5 years. I don't care what.
Al Jefferson's going to get off in that series too. Like,
he's gonna be a problem.
Frank, I'm going to quote you on that if it happens.
What was his stat line the night LeBron had 60? He almost had 40-30, right?
Yeah, he had like 40 and 25 or something like that.
Yeah,
he went nuts.
Why is he not being talked about as a potential MVP candidate, man? I mean, that guy had an amazing season.
You've never talked to me about the MVP.
No, yeah, they didn't win. They didn't win enough. I mean, I think he definitely gets recognition, but I don't think they didn't win enough for that to happen. But let's jump into the next one. I guess that kind of brings us right into the next one. What's the most intriguing series to everybody? Just one series in the first round. Let's let everybody answer before we name a second one, because you guys stole all my damn answers last time. I'll go with you first, Michael.
Well, do you want my Eastern Conference watch or my Western Conference
I just want
watch?
one. You get to pick one.
Okay, fine.
Stop being greedy.
I'm gonna have to
Keep it real, partner.
Be a
right.
traditionalist.
Cash rules everything around me. You know how it is.
Yeah,
Anyways, the one series that I'm really, really looking forward to, and I don't mean to hurt, here, Brandon, because I know the wound is still fresh. Memphis and Oklahoma City. And I'll tell you why. Memphis is coming off of a 5-game winning streak going into the playoffs. Nice overtime win against the Mark Cuban Mavericks. But and I was watching Around the Horn earlier today, trying to get in the mood for this whole. And I think it was Page brought up an interesting stat line that I'm going to be able to, kind of cast off on you guys as my own. Is that the Memphis Grizzlies, since Marc Gasol's return, are 33-15. That's the best record in the Western Conference. And I don't know about you guys, but if Memphis can guard that three-point line, yes, I know Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, they're going to be able to run full force since Russell Westbrook, has been restricted the last few games of 30, 35 minutes. Now they're going to be able to run. And you're not going to stop that. But if you can slow that down and maintain three-point defense, with Zach Randolph playing the way Zach Randolph has been the past few games, down low, not only are they really could give Oklahoma City a very big scare. 7 games is totally doable for Memphis. I'm not saying that they win it, but it's going to be very close.
Isn't it funny we talked about this the other day, Frank, like yesterday or whatever, that Memphis, the 1 year tanked to get the Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
And now they had the chance to basically do that again last night. Not necessarily tank in the same fashion, but they could have lost that game.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's hilarious that they wanted, they didn't want I don't know if they wanted the Spurs that 2011 as much as they wanted OKC, but now, or they didn't want OKC. Now they apparently want OKC. I'm baffled. Let's go with you, Frank. And Frank's face almost kind of looked like Michael might have taken his, but.
Yeah, Michael definitely took my answer, but I'm going to one-up him because not only do I have the same answer, I got Memphis winning in 7. Memphis beat Oklahoma City.
All right.
Upset City, baby. I love the Memphis Grizzlies. Anybody that's asked me throughout the season, I've told them that the Memphis Grizzlies are the sleeper in the West, that as soon as they get Gasol back, they're going to be a completely different team. This is not your typical 7 seed, people. This team would have been a top 4 seed if Marc Gasol was healthy all season, and they're going to play like it. Their defense matches up well against OKC. They got the size inside, and they can throw multiple defenders at KD. They got Tony Allen, who's one of the premier defenders in the league. He's probably going to flip-flop between Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant because
you don't want him on Durant. I don't want him on Durant.
Yeah, he's guarded Durant before pretty well. I mean, he's pesky. He kind of annoys you. Durant's been a little emotional lately the last couple of years. I can see him elbowing Tony Allen right in the face.
Just
and let's not forget Durant was awful from beyond the arc last month. I mean, I don't know the exact number, but I think it was like 8% from beyond the arc. Like I said, they guard that three-point line. If it could totally happen, Frankie. I mean, I could see it. I'm not calling it, but I could totally see it.
First of all, Michael, only my mom calls me Frankie, so let's chill right there.
Hey, at least I didn't call you Francis.
You crossed the line.
They can throw multiple defenders at Kevin Durant, including James Johnson. I think his first name is James. I'm almost positive his first name is James, but he's a big, lanky defender. And And, they got Tayshaun Prince, who is past his prime, way past his prime, but if there's one thing he can still do, it's defend. So I'm very excited for this Memphis Grizzlies series against the OKC Thunder, and I have the Grizzlies in 7.
The one thing.
Shout out to Frank for bringing back Tayshaun Prince.
Tayshaun Prince is never going to lose one thing about his game, and that is incredible length. I will give him that. Memphis just worries me on offense because I don't know, because the Thunder are a pretty good defensive team. I mean, even inside. So I just don't. That's Memphis's biggest weapon, is being able to pound you with Gasol and Randolph, and I just don't know if they can do it against Memphis effectively, as effectively as they would like to. I think they would have had a better chance, honestly, with the Spurs. But I don't know. I can't co-sign any of that Memphis winning stuff. Let's go to you, Brandon.
I don't mean to really just keep talking about the Suns, even though I said I wasn't. But Frank and Michael, I have to bounce off.
The Suns are not in the playoffs.
No, they are in the playoffs. They are in the playoffs.
If you
Hey,
look
the
down
Lakers
at
aren't in the playoffs. You don't see me talking about them.
If you look down at that jersey that you have on, it doesn't say Phoenix. It says Houston.
Hey, the Suns are in the playoffs. But I had to bounce off what both of you said, because here's why, and this is going back to me talking about Phoenix again. But we've versed them 4 times this year, and holy cow, this team is really good. And I think Andy just said their offense and how he's worried about it. This team likes to slow the ball down. So that's kind of what sort of worries me, but this team can get hot. Marcus Gasol is playing well. Zach Randolph, he played like a 19-year-old kid against our last game that unfortunately knocked us out. And Tayshaun Prince
like 34 points?
Yeah, he rocked us. And really, but to answer the question, I was actually just staring at the NBA playoff bracket. My 2 cents is, first off, the whole Western Conference is must-see TV. Hands down, that is it. Mm-hmm. But I think my pick is going to be the Clippers and the Warriors. Warriors were one of my favorite teams
waiting for somebody to
last year.
say that.
Mm-hmm. The Warriors were one of my favorite teams last year, and they were kind of like the Suns in a way. I mean, they were a team that no one projected to beat them, including myself. Yeah, I know.
Drink. Every time Brandon says Suns, we drink.
I'm out.
You're going to be trashed at the end of this episode.
Brandon, to be honest, that was definitely up there in my pick. It probably would have been my pick if Bogut didn't go down. But when Bogut went down, it completely killed the series for me, because now I feel like the Clippers are just going to abuse them inside. Jermaine O'Neal is not guarding anybody. Thank you very much.
Now it's taken on a whole nother level with Klay Thompson calling out Blake Griffin to an extent.
Was cold.
Despite the fact that he said
no, that's
Blake
not to an extent. He straight did it. Like,
here's why I say to an extent, because he called Blake Griffin a genuine person off the court.
Sure, but he basically said on the court, you're like Ronald McDonald running.
Yeah, he dissed him.
Blake Griffin has a target on his head for everybody.
Yeah, I don't know why, but everybody likes to take their days out on Blake Griffin.
Straight up,
they do. But he got 16 technicals. I'm glad to see Blake getting nasty.
16 technical fouls.
Get nasty, Blake.
I want Blake to elbow somebody right in the face. That's kind of what I want at this point.
It's Klay Thompson.
I want to see him elbow Andrew Bogut. My pick wasn't picked, and I'm kind of surprised, especially with Houston's #1 fan Brandon over there. I like the Houston-Portland series. I've kind of been a big fan. Actually, I'll give you a little history. A few of us, Frank was involved in our other guy, Jason Whitney, at Sports Kings. We had a little futures bet on the NBA on Portland winning that division. Obviously, it didn't happen. But for just a second, it looked really, really good.
It did. When Westbrook went down, it looked very good.
So I'm a little emotionally attached to Portland. Not to mention that I was supposed to go to Portland Trailblazers at the Detroit Pistons game, like the 15th of December. The weather was terrible. We couldn't make the drive from New York, so we just kind of surrendered the game. Great seats and all. And actually, that game went to OT. Damian Lillard won.
It did. It was such a good game.
I mean,
it was terrible.
Breaks my heart. But I'm gonna go with that series. The big problem with that series is I don't know the exact numbers because I had them and then I accidentally X'd them out. But Dwight Howard's looked really good. If there's one team Dwight Howard's looked good against, it's been Portland. My numbers are gone here, but
yeah,
he did a really good job.
Are you telling me that Fropez couldn't do the job against him? Is that what's going on? That's a shocker.
The worst thing is like Brook Lopez, like his bag is defense, but Dwight Howard's just one of those guys who's a really bad matchup for him, I think, and he's a bad matchup for LaMarcus Aldridge. It's like and not to ring Dwight's bell, I think he's been good this year, but he's really a bad matchup for that team. And I think the series is 3-1 in favor of Houston in the regular season. So, I mean, obviously that worries me. But I feel like, we have Damian Lillard, we have LaMarcus Aldridge, we have the Fear the Beard James Harden, we have Dwight Howard. Like, we have big names. I love those series. Like, it's the same thing with that Golden State LA. Like, you have Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, you have the Splash Brothers. I mean, you even have David Lee, Andre Iguodala, guys of that nature.
The great thing about the series that you picked is probably going to be the most exciting series, I think, as far as people that like to see off, because this is not going to be like your typical playoff series. Both these teams want to just run up and down and start shooting threes. I think this might be the highest scoring series in NBA history, because it's just going to be Damian Lillard penetrating Wesley Matthews 3, and then they're going to come down the other way. James Harden penetrating, Jeremy Lin 3, and it's just going to be threes all over the place.
And
I don't think either team is going to slow it down. They
both have great starting fives too. If you look at it, I mean, you have you just said Wesley Matthews, and you have like Nick Batum in there, and I mean, even Frope has had a decent season. I mean, people know who he is. So, like, as far as identifiable players go, I mean, I think that this one is great. And on the other end, you have Chandler Parsons, you have Jeremy Lin's there. I mean, it's just one of those series that has a lot of star power. I mean, the same thing I think you could say for that Golden State and that Clippers one. And that's another one, Frank, that's probably going to shoot lights out. But since we've talked through those, the one I was looking forward to was the damn Wizards and the Raptors, and I'm really still upset about that. Like, somebody played me for a fool. Like, I was so sure that was going to happen, even though I knew there was a possibility it couldn't, that I just convinced myself I was going to watch that series. So
who played you for a fool was Jason Kidd.
Yeah. Jason
and my Nets, because they pulled a straight up Memphis Grizzlies, and they tanked all the way down to the 6th seed to get the Raptors, because they have the Raptors number.
It's because Jason Kidd started from the bottom. Now he's here. He started spilling drinks on people, and now he's pulling off clever moves like that.
What people don't remember is that the Nets, even though the season series is 2-2, they literally threw away a game against the Raptors earlier this year, where Darren Williams, they were up 2 points. Darren Williams inbounded the pass with like 4 seconds left, and he threw it right to the Raptors, and then they hit a 3.
I pretty much have no doubt in my mind that the Nets will win that series. Like, I don't even think it's really debatable at this point.
Nets in 6.
Let's jump into this last one, and we can talk about this a little minute. I wasn't sure where we were going to be with time on this one, but let's talk about something that's not quite playoffs, but I guess it relates, and that's who was the most disappointing team to you in the NBA this year? I mean, if you want to say, somebody in the playoffs, go ahead. I mean, let's not say the Suns, because they didn't make the playoffs, because they didn't do anything to disappoint us. I mean, they played well. But let's start, like, what team should have been really good and then just, sunk to the levels of Lamar Odom? We'll go with you first, Frank.
For me, I thought this was going to be somewhat of a surprise pick, but somebody mentioned it earlier right before the show. But for me, it was the Detroit Pistons, because I thought they were a fringe playoff team. I don't know if you guys remember, but before the season, there was like a statistical thing that based on players' averages and blah, blah, blah. They had the Pistons as the 2 seed, the way the statistical formula worked out, which is completely wrong. I never thought that. But I thought they would compete for the 7, 8, 9 seed, and I kind of didn't bank on the East being terrible. So I thought they would be, 40 wins, somewhere around there. But not only were they bad, but like, their future looks terrible. They're like the worst. They're the worst team in the league. I think they're the worst team in the league right now.
It was you that said that. I was wondering who said that the other day. I saw somebody say that, and I couldn't remember.
As far as their current situation, like how bad they are now, and their future does not look any better, because they're locked into this roster. Aside from Greg Monroe, who's probably their best player, is probably going to leave. So, like, they're locked into Josh Smith, Brandon Jennings, and Andre Drummond for the next 4 years. Good luck with that.
Well, at least they have Drummond.
Drummond's good. No, I'm not trying to trash on Drummond, but I'm just saying those 3 aren't get you anywhere.
Why did Joe Dumars pull the quick Matt Millen and then he was gone? Like, why did they do that? Why? And it's in Detroit too. Is the worst part.
What's great about Joe Dumars is I didn't think he could top Ben Gordon and Charlie Villanueva. Like, I thought that was the mecca of bad contracts, and then he just went, you know what? Let's get Brandon Jennings to shoot the ball 30 times a game, like float up threes, and when he's not shooting, he could just pass it to Josh Smith, and he's not going to pass it back. Just get out of here. Steve
that philosophy is terrible. Josh Smith looks at Brandon Jennings before the game, and he's like, "Yo, shoot the ball." If you can't shoot it, give it to me. I'll shoot the ball.
I'll shoot it.
You know, and they're gonna end up drafting some Adrian Payne out of Michigan State, and he's gonna be out there wanting to shoot threes too. Brandon, let's go to you.
I'm so glad that we had time for this question, and maybe you guys picked this, maybe you didn't. And I'm so passionate about this because I'm secretly a fan. The Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, they're on my list too.
Last year, they were good. They should have been a playoff team. Like last year, I mean, I even made a video about it on my own channel. This team had like all first-rounders on their roster. I'm like, what happened to the Cleveland Cavaliers? Let's not talk Anthony Bennett. I don't feel good when I talk about him. But
Kyrie Marbury, it's time to step your game up. Kyrie friends, step your game up.
Cleveland Cavaliers is my pick, and I mean we've talked about it on past shows. Of course, the Pistons. Frank, you spot on with what you said, man. Holy cow.
Michael, who is your disappointing team of this season? Is it your boys?
It's not my boys because I knew we were going to suck. I didn't know we were going to be this bad, but I knew we were going to suck.
Swaggy P.
When
Wait, I mean, at least you got to look forward to Cope. Never mind.
Hey, I actually really enjoyed watching Swaggy P when I could. I mean, watching Nick Young drop 40, I didn't even know who the hell Nick Young was up until 3 weeks ago. No,
did you YouTube his cinnamon challenge?
I still don't know who is this Nick Young? Who is this Nick Young you speak of? I know of a dude named Swaggy P, but
I kind of I was going to say the Pistons the whole time, but ever since you went to Frank first, the whole time I've been thinking, who else sucked? The Knicks.
Yeah.
Ding,
The
ding,
Knicks.
Ding,
I
ding,
mean,
ding,
2
ding.
weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we had a show. It was either a King's Court show or a This Week in Sports show. By the way, if you guys are watching and sleeping on the This Week in Sports show, don't. It's awesome. Go watch it.
No napping.
This is
no,
do not. Do not.
ambient free
This
that
is,
show.
and it's the same episode where Andy took my Jim Moore moment, so I had to do another moment. But I mean, you had the playoffs were right there. You sucked for so long, and then somehow or another, in a maligned Eastern Conference that was just completely dismal, we've beaten that dead horse to, past death. I mean, we beat that bitch into the afterlife.
Ooh.
And then you had it.
We don't
You
listen.
had it. It was-
Listen,
it was-
people. If you're viewing this show, we are not condoning what Ray Rice did by any means.
Or Michael Vick, but we somehow have endorsed them anyway. Anyways, you were right there. You had it in your clutches, and you choked. You had the
Pretty
fans
mellow.
revolting. You brought in the Zen Master, and you still choked. And you've got Jason Whitney rolling over on his, recliner or whatever he's got right now, trying to turn into a Pistons fan.
I mean, he's still got the Georgetown.
He's
He's still got the Georgetown Hoyt. No, never mind.
He's trying to be a Blazers fan. You've got him turning all Wonder Woman-like into a Blazers fan.
Jason Whitney is seriously a Blazers fan now. Like he
is.
completely just left the Knicks. He's like, Damian
It's so
Lillard, that's
bad.
my boy.
It's so bad. But and here's something: if for some odd reason Mike Woodson does get fired, hey Detroit, make sure that Mike Woodson gets a phone call from the 3.
Don't do it. No, Josh Smith already quit on him once. That can't happen.
Yo, imagine like
I'm calling David
I would-
Stern tomorrow.
this
We're
Piston-
vetoing
see,
that.
here's-
That's
right
not
quick,
allowed.
what I was my Pistons rant was going to be something along the lines of, you thought that Mo Cheeks was going to be your answer and it wasn't. So then you promote a Mo Cheeks assistant named John Lawyer, who was an assistant under Bob Huggins, who's now at the University of West Virginia when he was back in Akron in the late 80s, who has basically just been a disciple of the gospel according to Mo Cheeks. And you thought that was the answer? Come on.
Yo,
The whole
just
point is
two
Detroit has
quick
no
points
identity.
on what
Detroit
two
needs
quick
an
points on what
identity.
Michael
Detroit
said
doesn't have one.
before Andy gives his answer here. For one, just for pure entertainment purposes, we need to get Mike Woodson's ISO offense on the Detroit Pistons. I just want to see Josh Smith
Brandon
ISO for 20
Jennings.
seconds.
It's gonna be Brandon Jennings. All day.
Slash.
The second minor point from what Michael said is one of the great stories in a disappointing NBA season overall. Like, it's probably been a disappointment for most of us. I think that's fair to say.
Definitely.
Swaggy P playing the Kobe role lived up to expectations 180,000%. Just Swaggy P as Kobe was just great.
And before I say my pick, because I'm going to forget if I don't, the other really entertaining thing for me happened late in the season, and it also has to do with the Lakers. Steve Nash with the ski mask and the gun. And
Yo,
he's just,
cut the check.
like, got away with robbery. Come on. So my pick was
Oh,
initially
God,
the
don't
Knicks,
remind me,
and then
please.
Michael took my pick, so I would have fallen back normally on the Pistons probably, but I can't do that either. So I want to go. I'll just to mention somebody. I'll say the Timberwolves. You know, they're like with Cleveland and Detroit. I probably preseason. I'm sure I had a ranking somewhere actually, and I'm sure I had those guys in over probably the Bobcats and the Raptors. I think if I would have to think about it right now. But the Timberwolves, I don't know that I necessarily expected them to be a playoff team because the West is so tough. But I expected them to like be in the mix for the playoffs. You know, within a couple games out there. You know, they have too much. I mean, we've talked about their roster before, Frank. You've been a part of that, but I think their roster is a lot better than people give it credit for. Not the greatest, but when you have a guy like Kevin Love, who's supposed to, you know, some people think Kevin Love's a top 5 player. I mean, he's not. But if you're of that mindset, I mean, you're supposed to. He should be able to will you to do something. I mean, he puts up a great stat line, so I feel like
Rubio's talented.
And
The only reason why it's hard for me to pick Minnesota is just because they've had one of those like weird heartbreaking seasons. Like I don't know their record in like 3-point games, but it's like 1-12 or something like that. You're supposed to win half those games. You know what I mean?
Another
that
big
changes
thing
your
for
whole
them.
season.
Another big thing is like Kevin Love played all. He didn't last year. He was out, and then he was like, my hand's good, I'm coming back, and he played for like 30 seconds, and then he was done again, like shut down. So I think people, had some expectations there. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's definitely the Knicks or the Pistons. I mean, the Pistons, Frank, I remember talking about this before the season. I think I had them rate probably in 5 to 8 range, definitely in the playoffs, and just so much talent that I think a lot of people did have a suspicion that they would either be upset Kings and they'd be right up in the top 3, or maybe they would just flop and fall on their faces, and that seems to be what had happened.
Back to your Minnesota point, though, shout out to the Minnesota owner who says he wants to wait another year to see if the Kevin Love giving Ricky Rubio all that money was a mistake. And also shout out to David Kahn for drafting 3 point guards in a draft that had Stephen Curry.
And none of them were Steph Curry.
None of the point guards he drafted were Stephen Curry.
Oh, my God.
Good job by you. Good job by you.
Go find Joe Dumars because he's got to be the next GM over there.
Joe Dumars will give Shabazz Muhammad $60 million tomorrow.
He will. Does anybody have final thoughts on the playoffs before they start? It's your last chance to speak.
I think it'll see TV.
I think there'll be a team possibly in each conference that makes the conference finals that you don't expect. I think the Bulls have a great chance to beat the Pacers and make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I think the Grizzlies have a good chance to make it to the Western Conference Finals.
That, sir, is bold. Michael, you got anything to say?
Nah.
No. Wow. That's the first time. Brandon, final thoughts on the playoffs before we get out of here.
It's just like I said, it's must-see TV. I mean, I work and stuff. If you have a chance to even watch like 2 quarters of it, watch the NBA playoffs this year.
Fire D'Antoni.
Get your sick call. Get your sick call. Nice.
Call out of work and just watch some NBA basketball.
And I can't wait either. Action kicks off Saturday. That'll be roughly tomorrow by the time you're seeing this video. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and let you guys know that you can go to www.sports-kings.com for all of your sports needs. We have everything, people. I mean, come check us out. I'm not begging. Also, I'd like to tell you to follow us on Twitter @RealSportsKings, and you can find us on Facebook. Just go to your nice little search bar and type in Sports-Kings. Don't forget the dash ever. On behalf of myself, Michael, Frank, Brandon, and everybody at the Sports Kings Network, I'd like to say have a great night and enjoy this NBA playoff basketball.
Free my homie Javaris Crittenden.